Welcome back to another deep dive. It is currently Sunday, February 15th, 2026. And I have to say, looking at the calendar today, it feels like we're standing on a bit of a fault line. A good fault line, maybe, but a shift in the ground nonetheless.
That is a dramatic way to start a Sunday morning, but, given the stack of reports we have in front of us, I think it's warranted.
I think it is, because just 10 days ago, on February 5th, something happened that might, and I want to choose my words carefully here because we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but it might just be the beginning of the end for the gig economy,
Right.
as we've known it for the last, 15 years?
You're talking about the official launch of Bharat Taxi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On February 5, 2026, the Union Home and Cooperation Minister Amit Shah pressed a button, metaphorically speaking, and launched this platform. Now, if you just read the headline, it sounds like just another app.
Mm-hmm.
Government launches taxi app. Right. Government launches taxi app. Okay, fine. We've seen government apps before. Usually they're a bit clunky, they crash, and we all go back to our usual habits. But when you dig into the sources we have today, the white papers, the press releases, the structural breakdown, this is not just an app. This is an ideological declaration of war.
War is a strong word, but when you look at the philosophy behind this, it fits. It really is a date that historians of the digital age might end up circling and reading.
I think so, too.
Because what we're seeing here is the state combined with the massive cooperative machinery of India, which is, a sleeping giant in itself, placing a massive bet against what we call aggregator capitalism.
Aggregator capitalism. That is the phrase of the day. Let's unpack that right at the top because it's so important. We're talking about the Silicon Valley model Uber, Ola, Rapido.
Right. The model where a centralized tech giant sits in the middle, connects a buyer and a seller, and, crucially, takes a massive cut.
And controls the data.
And controls the data. And controls the pricing. And controls the terms of engagement. That has been the status quo for over a decade. You have the algorithm as the boss.
Mm-hmm.
Bharat Taxi is positioning itself as the David to that Goliath. Although, as we're going to go through these documents, this particular David seems to have some very, very heavy armor.
It's a David backed by the Indian state and the largest agricultural cooperatives in the world. So it's not exactly an underdog story in terms of resources, is it?
Not at all. And the slogan they launched with, talk about knowing your audience.
Oh, it's perfect.
It's 3 short sentences that I think sent a shiver down the spine of some venture capitalists. No commissions, no surge pricing, full driver ownership.
It's a slogan that hits every single pain point in the current market with surgical precision.
Absolutely. Drivers hate commissions. That's their #1 complaint by a mile. Riders hate surge pricing. That's what makes us close the app and, look for an auto on the street. And the idea of ownership.
That's the one that changes everything.
That's the cherry on top. That changes the psychological contract of work itself.
And just to ground this for everyone listening, this isn't some theoretical thing. This is real. It's live. As of 10 days ago, Bharat Taxi is operating in Delhi NCR and Gujarat.
Right. They ran a 2-month pilot before this, and now they're scaling up.
They are. The roadmap in front of me says they want to cover India from Kashmir to Kanyakumari by 2029.
The ambition is it's staggering.
It really is. But our mission for this deep dive is not just to review the interface or check if the map works. We aren't tech reviewers today.
No, not at all. We are here to explore a much bigger, almost civilizational question.
Which is?
Can the Amul model, the cooperative model that revolutionized milk production in the 20th century, can it revolutionize mobility in the 21st?
And if it can do that, can it topple the entire gig economy structure? Can it change how we buy food, how we hire plumbers, how we work?
That's the big promise. Later on, we are going to look at how this model could disrupt 10 other industries, from food delivery to freelancing. The sources list some fascinating, really mind-bending possibilities there.
I can't wait to get to that. But first, we have to unpack what Bharat Taxi actually is, because the media is calling it the antidote to aggregators. So let's deconstruct the antidote.
Right. Let's start with the structure. This is fascinating to me because usually when we talk about a new unicorn or a new disruptor, we talk about the founders, we talk about the venture capitalists, the seed round, the Series A funding.
Mm-hmm. The story of 2 guys in a garage?
Exactly. Here, the entity operating it is the Bharat Taxi Cooperative Limited, or STCL.
STCL. And who is backing STCL? Because you mentioned Goliath earlier.
Yeah.
Thus, David has some very, very big friends.
The backers are giants. I mean, absolute titans of the Indian economy. We're talking about Amul itself. We're talking about IFFCO, the fertilizer giant, Cree BHCO, NAFED, and NABARD.
So these are the pillars of India's cooperative and agricultural sectors.
They are. These are organizations that have been around for decades, have deep pockets, and deeply entrenched networks across the entire country.
So just to be crystal clear, this is not two guys in a garage in Bangalore coding all night, hoping for a buyout from Google.
Far, far from it. This is registered under the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act of 2002. It has institutional weight behind it. It has the backing of the Ministry of Cooperation. And that structure, that legal foundation, dictates the financials. And this is where the real aha moment happens for the drivers.
Okay, let's get into the math. Because for a driver, ideology is nice, but rent is due on the first.
The bottom line always matters.
It does. The headline feature is zero commission. Now, we're all used to the status quo. Uber or Ola usually take a cut, right? Pretty big one.
Correct. The industry standard has hovered between 20% to 40% of the total fare. It can fluctuate, but that's the ballpark. That is a massive chunk of the revenue leaving the car and going to the platform.
So if I pay, let's say, 500 rupees for a ride to the airport, up to 200 rupees of that might just vanish. It goes to the app. And the driver who owns the car pays for the fuel, pays for the maintenance, and does the actual driving, gets just 300.
Exactly. It's an extraction model. The platform extracts value for making the connection. Bharat Taxi completely, utterly removes that extraction layer. The driver keeps 100% of the fare.
100%. Okay, hold on. I have to play the skeptic here.
Yeah.
How does the platform survive? They have to pay for servers, they have developers to pay, they have customer support. Money doesn't grow on trees, even for cooperatives.
No, it doesn't. And they have a clear answer for that. They use a subscription model. It's effectively a SaaS model, software as a service for the drivers.
So the drivers pay to use the app.
Yes, but it's a very small daily access fee. The sources we have indicate it's around 30 rupees per day for taxis and about 18 rupees per day for auto rickshaws.
30 rupees a day. That's
Yeah.
the price of a cup of tea at a nice stall, or maybe half a cup at an airport. It's nominal.
It is. It's designed to be. And this is where the math gets really, really interesting. Let's just do the calculation on a daily basis to see the impact. Imagine a driver earns 2,000 rupees in total fares in a day. It's a decent day's work.
Okay, 2,000 rupees.
On a normal aggregator platform, if they take a conservative 25% cut, let's not even say 40, let's say 25, the driver loses 500 rupees instantly.
Gone.
Vanished. They take home 1,500 rupees.
Okay, following you, 500 gone to the app tax.
Right. Now, on Bharat Taxi, they earn the same 2,000 rupees. They pay their 30 rupee fee. They keep 1,970 rupees.
So they are saving 470 rupees every single day.
Every single day. And if you multiply that by, say, 26 working days a month, that is nearly 12,000 to 15,000 rupees in extra income.
That's huge. I mean, we have to pause on that number. For a driver in India, 15,000 rupees isn't just pocket money.
It's not.
That is a transformative amount. That is a child school fee for the entire year.
Wow.
That is the EMI on the car itself. That moves you from survival mode to potential stability, maybe even prosperity.
Precisely. That is the economic engine of this entire project. It's not a small difference. It shifts the wealth from the platform back to the provider. It stops the leakage of value out of the local economy.
But what about the rider? Because usually in economics, there's a trade-off. If the driver makes more, the rider has to pay more. But you mentioned no surge pricing.
This is the other side of the equation, and it's what makes the model so elegant. By removing the middleman's markup, that 20–30% commission, the base fares can actually be lower while the driver still earns more.
That seems... It seems impossible, but I guess if you just delete that 30% extraction layer, there's a lot of room for everyone to eat. It creates a buffer.
It creates a massive buffer.
Right.
Plus, they have removed the dynamic multipliers.
The dreaded surge. You know, it starts raining in Mumbai, or it's 6 p.m. in Bangalore, and suddenly a 200 rupee ride is 600 rupees.
And there's no transparency. You just have to accept it. Bharat Taxi says no to that. They want to build trust by eliminating volatility. They're betting that riders prefer consistency and fairness over the gamble of dynamic pricing. The sources we're looking at suggest rides can be 20% to 30% cheaper for the rider, simply because the platform isn't trying to maximize profit for distant shareholders.
It sounds almost too good to be true. Cheaper for me, more money for the driver. But there's another layer here that I find really, really compelling in the documents. It's this Sarathi concept.
Yes, Sarathi, meaning charioteer. It's a very evocative word choice. And this brings us back to the cooperative structure. In a normal app, the driver is a partner, which is just a nice legal term for a contractor with basically no rights.
Right, it's a fiction.
It is. Here, every driver, every Sarathi is required to buy a minimum of 5 shares.
Shares in the company.
Shares in the cooperative. And it's a nominal amount. The sources say about 500 rupees total, but that 500 rupees buys them something you absolutely cannot get on Uber or Ola, no matter how many 5-star rides you give.
Right.
It buys them voting rights.
They can vote, like actually vote on company policy.
They are owners. They can elect the board members. They can vote on major policies. And, crucially, they are eligible for dividends. If the cooperative makes a surplus at the end of the year, it doesn't go to investors in Silicon Valley or Tokyo. It goes back to the drivers.
Wow. That is a fundamental shift in psychology. You aren't working for the algorithm anymore.
You own the algorithm.
You own a piece of it.
Precisely. And it comes with a welfare layer that stands in stark contrast to the precarity of normal gig work. We're seeing provisions for 5 lakh rupees in health insurance, vehicle financing support, training, and robust safety features like panic buttons and real-time tracking.
It seems like they're trying to reprofessionalize the job, turning it back into a stable livelihood rather than just a desperate hustle between other jobs.
They're trying to restore dignity. I think that's the core of it. The gig economy promised freedom, but often delivered insecurity. This model attempts to keep the freedom, but add the security back in.
And speaking of the app itself, the tech stack is interesting too. Because, let's be honest, government or cooperative tech has a reputation for being, well, clunky.
That's a very fair stereotype. We've all struggled with government websites that look like they were built in 1998.
Exactly.
But here, they're being smart about it. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're utilizing open source architecture, heavily affiliated with ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce.
So they're plugging into that existing digital public infrastructure.
They are. They've integrated UPI and card support. The strategy is clearly low-cost, efficient infrastructure. They're actively avoiding the massive overheads that private tech giants have. They aren't spending billions on experimental autonomous vehicles or flying cars.
Right, no moonshot.
No moonshots. They're just efficiently connecting a rider to a driver. They're treating the technology as a utility, like electricity or water, not as a luxury product.
Okay, so we have the structure, we have the financials. But throughout the sources, this one phrase keeps coming up again and again. The Amul of mobility. Everyone is making this comparison. It's in every op-ed, every analysis.
It's the most important analogy to understand. If you can get your head around Amul, you understand the bet that Bharat Taxi is making.
Let's break it down then. For anyone who might not be familiar with the deep history,
Yeah.
in the dairy model, you have the farmer. In the taxi model, you have the driver.
Right. It's a direct one-to-one mapping. The dairy farmer is the driver. They are the supplier of the service or the product.
Okay.
The cooperative, which was Amul then and is Bharat Taxi now, is the platform. It's the processor or the aggregator. It connects the supply to the market.
And the profits. This is the key part.
This is everything. In the corporate model, profits go to investors and shareholders. In the Amul model, profits become dividends that go right back to the supplier, to the farmer, to the driver.
And the philosophy behind all of this is Sakar se Samriti, prosperity through cooperation.
It is a shift from capital employing labor to labor employing capital. That's the core philosophical reversal. Usually, money hires people to make more money. Here, people are hiring money, or in this case, technology, to serve themselves.
That is a profound way to put it. People hiring technology. But philosophy is one thing. The market is another. The sources mention the Indian ride-hailing market is about, $21 billion today?
And projected to more than double to $44 billion by 2032. The drivers of this growth are clear. Urbanization, more people moving to cities, massive smartphone penetration, and the ease of digital payments. The market is exploding.
And this is a big but.
Here is the crucial hurdle, and we have to be realistic about this. Network effects.
Classic chicken and egg problem.
Exactly. Riders want fast pickups. If I open the app, I want a car in 3 minutes, not 15. Drivers want high demand. They go where the pings are, where the customers are.
And private companies like Uber and Ola burn billions upon billions of dollars to build that liquidity.
They did. They subsidized rides to get people like us hooked. They gave drivers massive cash incentives to stay on their platform. Bharat Taxi is trying to build that same network effect, but not on cash burn. They are trying to build it on moral alignment.
Moral alignment. That is a very risky bet in a capitalist market. You're betting that people will choose the good option over the easy or cheap option, even if the good option is slightly less convenient, especially at the start.
It's a huge bet.
But to understand why they think it might actually work, we need to go back in time. We need to do a historical deep dive into the Amul origin story itself. Because honestly, looking at the sources again, the story of Amul is wilder and more revolutionary than I remember.
It really is. We have to transport ourselves back to the 1940s. We're in the Kaira district of Gujarat. The British Raj is still in power. It's a very different world.
And there's a villain in this story, a real-life corporate villain.
There is. Polson Dairy and the Bombay Milk Scheme, they had a complete monopoly. They were the middlemen. And they squeezed the farmers with incredibly low prices.
And you have to remember, milk is perishable.
That's the key. If you don't sell it today, it spoils tomorrow. You can't hoard it like you can with grain. The farmers had absolutely zero bargaining power. It was pure, unadulterated exploitation.
And then enters the Iron Man of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel.
He was the political will. Farmers went to him completely desperate, and he gave them simple, but at the time, radical advice. Strike. Stop supplying milk. And form your own cooperative.
That is such a bold move. You can't just store milk in a warehouse for a month. A strike meant losing everything for those days. It's a massive risk.
It was a high-stakes gamble. It was a bet-the-farm kind of decision, literally, but they did it. Tribhuvandas Patel, a local leader, organized the farmers and formed the union in 1946. But a cooperative needs more than just spirit. It needs systems. It needs professional management.
And that brings us to the third character in this trinity, Verghese Kurian.
The reluctant engineer.
He didn't even want to be there initially, right? The story is he was just posted there.
He was. He was a sophisticated man, educated in the U.S., and he gets posted to this dusty, remote district of Anand. He wanted to leave as soon as his government contract was up, but he stayed. And he became the father of the White Revolution.
What did he bring that was so different?
He brought professional management to the cooperative structure. This is absolutely crucial. Amul wasn't just a gathering of farmers with a good idea. It was a professionally run, world-class industry that just happened to be owned by farmers. That's the distinction.
And they developed what is now called the Anand pattern. The sources say this is the literal blueprint for Bharat Taxi.
Yeah.
So what is the Anand pattern?
It's a three-tier structure. This is the secret sauce for scaling. You can't manage millions of farmers from one central office.
Yeah.
So tier 1 is the village level, the primary society.
Okay, super local.
Super local. This is where milk is collected every morning and every evening. One member, one vote. It's democracy at the grassroots.
Then what's tier 2?
Tier 2 is the district level, the union. They handle the processing and the manufacturing. They run the factories that turn the milk into butter, cheese, and so on.
And tier 3?
Tier 3 is the state level, the federation, which we all know as GCMMF, the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation. They handle the marketing and the branding. They're the ones who sell the product nationwide.
So the local farmer worries about the cow, the district union worries about the factory, and the state federation worries about the TV commercials.
That is a perfect summary. Specialization at every level, but the ownership always remains at the bottom. The farmer in the village at Tier 1 ultimately controls the federation at the top. It's an inverted pyramid of power.
And this model allowed them to launch Operation Flood between 1970 and 1996, which, I mean, the results are just unbelievable. It turned India from a milk-deficient nation
into the world's largest milk producer. It's one of the greatest development stories of the 20th century. Full stop.
And Amul's business genius wasn't just in collection, it was in value addition, right? That's the key part of the story.
Oh, absolutely. If you just sell raw milk, the margins are razor thin. Amul brilliantly shifted to butter, cheese, ice cream, chocolate, high-margin products, and the branding, the Amul Girl campaign.
The Girl. She's been running since 1966. The topical, often very funny, humorous billboards that comment on everything from cricket to politics.
It created an emotional connection. It made Amul a part of the Indian family. And the result today is a massive entity with a turnover of over 60,000 crore rupees, entirely owned by the millions of farmers who supply the milk.
So when Bharat Taxi says they want to be the Amul of mobility, they are not just using a buzzword.
No. They're invoking this entire history of taking a fragmented, exploited supply base, organizing them, and turning them into a market-dominating force. They're saying, we did it with milk, we can do it with kilometers.
Okay, history lesson over. It's an incredibly inspiring story. But now we have to bring it back to the hard reality of 2026. Can this actually work for taxis? Because a cow doesn't need a GPS and milk doesn't complain if the pickup is 5 minutes late.
This is the reality check section, and it's the most important part of the analysis. Let's look at the strengths first, to be fair.
Okay.
The income motivator is powerful. It's undeniable. 25% higher income is not a small thing. If you ask any worker anywhere in the world, would you like a 25% raise to do the exact same job? The answer is always yes.
Of course.
And the pride of ownership is a real psychological factor. It's not just fluff. If you own the platform, maybe you keep your car a bit cleaner. Maybe you're a bit more polite to customers because it's your business you're representing, not some faceless corporation.
And they have government and institutional support that helps with regulations, with licensing, with stability. But looking at your notes, I see some red ink. You have some serious concerns.
I do. We have to be critical here. And the first one is the tech gap. This is my biggest worry.
Explain that.
Uber and Ola have spent a decade and billions of dollars refining their algorithms. Their AI predicts demand hotspots, it routes you around traffic in real time, it has sophisticated fraud detection. Can a cooperative, even a well-funded one, match that user experience, the UX, right out of the gate?
That is a very fair point. If the app crashes or the map is glitchy or the payment fails, riders will leave.
Yeah.
We are spoiled consumers. We have zero patience for friction.
We are ruthless. We'll abandon a service in a heartbeat. And that leads to the second problem, the cold start problem. The network density.
The chicken and egg again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I open Bharat Taxi and it says no cars available or wait time is 15 minutes and I open Uber and it says a car is 2 minutes away, I am taking the Uber. I don't care about the ideology in that moment. I need to get to my meeting.
Consumer behavior is driven by convenience, first and foremost, not just ethics.
Exactly. And the incumbents, Ola and Uber, they will not just roll over and let this happen. This is a capital war.
What can they do?
They can slash prices. They can offer massive bonuses to drivers to stop them from logging into Bharat Taxi. Imagine a message saying, do 10 rides on our platform today, get a 2,000 rupee bonus. How does a driver say no to that?
And Bharat Taxi cannot burn cash indefinitely.
They can't. They have to be sustainable. They don't have a SoftBank writing billion-dollar checks to cover losses for years on end.
There's also the issue of governance. This is a paradox. Democracy is great for fairness, as the sources point out, but it can be painfully slow for business. Tech moves at internet speed. Committees move at bureaucratic speed.
Imagine needing a board vote from driver representatives to approve a critical software update or a new marketing strategy. That friction could be fatal. If Uber changes its pricing algorithm in real time to react to a sudden demand surge, and Bharat Taxi needs a committee meeting to respond, they lose. Every time.
So they need to figure out how to be democratic in ownership, but almost autocratic in execution.
It's a very, very tough needle to thread.
It is. It's a tough road ahead for them. But, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The sources mentioned a regional comparison that I found really fascinating. There's a parallel experiment happening right next door in Kathmandu, Nepal.
Yes, the Kalki Sena Drive. It's a great example.
Now, how does this compare? It seems similar on the surface, rejecting high commissions, positioning itself as an ethical alternative.
It is similar in spirit, but it's structurally different, and that difference is important. Bharat Taxi is a true cooperative. The drivers are the shareholders, the owners.
Right.
Kalki Sena Drive is described as a social enterprise. It's a company, but instead of profits going to investors, the sources say the profits are donated to public health care initiatives.
Oh, that's interesting. So one is profits to the driver, and the other is profits to society.
Precisely. Two different flavors of the same idea. But the takeaway here is that there is a regional trend emerging in South Asia. We're seeing a post-aggregator way of thinking. People are rejecting the foreign extraction of value.
They're asking the question.
They're asking, why should 20% of every single ride fare in our city leave our economy and go to San Francisco or Tokyo or wherever the investors are? It's a form of economic nationalism, but it's being driven by digital platforms.
That brings us to what I think is the most exciting part of this deep dive for me, the future vision section of these reports.
Yeah.
The sources lay out a premise. If you can organize milk, which is perishable and highly fragmented, and you can organize taxes, which is a complex logistics problem, what else can you organize?
This is the battle for digital infrastructure, and the sources list 10 sectors that are ripe for amulification. And honestly, some of these ideas are brilliant, and if they work, could reshape the entire economy.
Let's run through them. I want to hear your take on how these would actually look in the real world.
Yeah.
Number one on the list, food delivery. They're calling it the restaurant's Amul.
This is a huge one. Right now, restaurants hate the 20–30% commissions they pay to Zomato or Swiggy. It absolutely kills their margins. It's a constant point of friction.
And there's the data issue too, right?
A huge data issue. The platforms hoard the customer data. The restaurant doesn't know who you are or what you like to order. The app does. So a restaurant cooperative delivery network would mean the restaurants themselves own the platform. The riders could be members too. The data stays with the merchant.
It keeps the margin in the kitchen, not in the app.
I love that phrase, and it's exactly right. It puts the power back in the hands of the person creating the value, the chef.
Okay, number 2, retail and the Kirana stores. This is pitched as the anti-Amazon.
This is fascinating. Think about the 12 million Kirana stores in India. Individually, they're tiny, but collectively, they're a massive economic force. Amazon and Flipkart are squeezing them with deep discounts and fast delivery.
So what's the cooperative solution?
A digital Amul for retail. It would allow these small stores to pool their procurement buy in bulk together to get better prices from wholesalers. They could share warehousing, and they could use a unified app to offer quick commerce and compete with the giants. It gives the little guy the scale and strength of a giant.
It's digitizing the neighborhood store without selling it out to a big corporation. I like that. Number 3, home services. The alternative to platforms like Urban Company. We're talking plumbers, beauticians, electricians.
This sector is just rife with complaints about high commissions and the tyranny of arbitrary ratings.
Right, one bad review can destroy your livelihood.
Exactly. A service provider cooperative would allow the workers themselves to set floor prices. They could create insurance pools for health and accidents. And importantly, peer governance for disputes. Instead of an algorithm firing you because you got a 3-star rating one time, a committee of your peers would review the case. It puts the human back in the loop.
That human element of governance seems to be a key theme here. Number 4, freelance and digital labor. The sources mention platforms like Upwork and Fiverr taking big cuts.
They take up to 20%. Plus, you often lose money on currency conversion. Now, imagine an Indian freelancer cooperative. You pay a small, say, 5% fee just to cover the platform's costs. You get collective bargaining power to negotiate better rates with large clients. You get access to shared legal and tax support. It would make Indian talent even more competitive globally while letting them keep a much larger share of their earnings. It's like a digital union.
Number 5, trucking and logistics.
This is a famously messy, fragmented industry that's controlled by brokers who take huge margins. A trucker's cooperative app would use technology to match shippers directly to drivers, cutting out the middleman. They could also do things like collective fuel buying to get discounts from depots. They could pool resources for fleet financing. It just brings efficiency and transparency to a very chaotic sector.
Okay, number 6, agri-tech. Now, we already have big fertilizer cooperatives like IFFCO. What's new here? What's the digital angle?
The sources mention a concept that is really cutting edge: data cooperatives.
Data cooperatives.
Yes. Usually farmers give their data away for free to big agri-tech firms. Weather data, soil health data, crop yield data. The firms then use AI to process this data and sell insights back to the farmers.
So the farmers create the raw material, the data, for free.
Exactly. Here, the farmers would own their collective data. They could then choose to sell that aggregated, anonymized data to insurance companies, to commodity traders, or research firms. It's about data sovereignty, owning the digital output of your land, not just the physical output.
That's a powerful idea. Number 7, pharmacy and health.
This is about fighting the centralization of e-pharmacies like Tata 1 milligram or Pharmeasy. The idea is for independent neighborhood pharmacies to form a cooperative for pooled drug procurement. By buying in bulk together, they can get lower prices from manufacturers and stay competitive. It prevents the local chemist from being wiped out by venture-funded giants.
Number 8, education, specifically EdTech.
We've all seen the rise of these massive EdTech platforms. A teacher cooperative learning platform would be the opposite. Instead of a platform taking 50% or more of your course revenue, the educators themselves would own the platform. They would share marketing costs, but they would keep the intellectual property and the vast majority of the revenue. It puts the teacher, the expert, back in charge of their own content.
Number 9 is mobility expansion. So going beyond taxis to auto rickshaws, e-rickshaws, even intercity bus cooperatives. That feels like a natural extension of Bharat Taxi.
It's the most straightforward one, yes. Once you have the tech stack for taxis, it's relatively easy to port it to other vehicle types. It becomes a unified cooperative mobility network for an entire city or state.
And finally, number 10, and this one might be the most socially impactful, domestic work and the care economy.
I agree. This is about formalizing the informal. Millions of domestic workers, mostly women, operate in a gray economy with no contracts, no security, no benefits. A cooperative app could change that. It could introduce standardized wages based on tasks and hours. It could be a platform for collecting contributions towards health insurance and pension funds. It could handle disputes. It brings dignity and security to millions of invisible workers who currently have none. It turns help into professionals.
It's an incredible list.
Yeah.
When you lay it all out like that, it really does paint a picture of a potential parallel economy built on completely different principles. But the question is, why now? Why is this all happening in 2026 and not 2016?
3 big reasons, according to our sources. First, and this is the most important, is DPI, digital public infrastructure.
Things like UPI and Aadhaar.
Exactly. UPI, Aadhaar, and now ONDC have lowered the cost of building platforms dramatically. You don't need to build a payment gateway from scratch anymore. You just plug into UPI. You don't need a complex identity verification system. You use Aadhaar. It democratizes the ability to build.
Okay, so the tools are cheaper and more accessible. What's number 2?
Second is smartphone penetration. With 800 million plus users in India, the market is finally ready. Everyone has the tool in their pocket. This wasn't true 10 years ago.
And the third reason?
And third is cultural history. India has decades of experience with cooperatives. It's in the national DNA, from sugar co-ops to dairy co-ops to housing societies. It's not a foreign concept being imported from somewhere else. The soil is fertile for this kind of idea.
The sources have a great name for this whole movement. They call it Economic Sovereignty 2.0.
I love that framing. It's very powerful. The first independence, they argue, was political in 1947. The second was industrial, building our own factories, the Green Revolution. This third independence is digital.
And at its core is this concept of value circulation.
Yes, let's break that down. It means keeping that 20–30% platform fee inside the local economy. When you take an Uber, a portion of that money eventually leaves India. It goes to investors abroad. When you use Bharat Taxi, that money stays with the driver. What does the driver do with it? He spends it at the local Kirana store. The Kirana store owner then pays the local distributor. The money circulates within the community, creating a multiplier effect. The argument is that it's not just about building apps, it's about owning the digital infrastructure of the nation to ensure wealth circulates locally.
That is a very, very powerful argument. So bringing it all back to Bharat Taxi, this is the first domino. This is the litmus test for this entire vision.
It absolutely is. The early signs from the pilot data are promising. The sources mention 10,000 daily rides, 300,000 signups. But we have to be clear, the road is incredibly long. This is the first inning of a very long test match.
So after going through all of this, what's the final verdict? Can they do it?
I think success will depend entirely on execution, not on ideology. You can have the noblest, most wonderful philosophy in the world, but if the car doesn't show up on time, you fail.
But the consumer is king.
Always. The question is, can they balance the democratic ownership they've promised with the algorithmic precision that the market demands? That is the billion-dollar question.
It really makes you think. We are so used to the idea, almost conditioned to believe, that capital owns technology. It's just the default assumption. Elon Musk owns the tech. Jeff Bezos owns the tech.
Right. It feels like a law of physics, something that can't be changed.
But the provocative thought here, the one I want to leave everyone with, is what happens to the global economy if labor owns technology? What if that becomes the new model?
That is the truly disruptive potential. Because if Bharat Taxi succeeds, even partially, it could become a policy export model for the entire global South. Countries in Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, they could look at this and say, wait a minute, we don't need to rely on Silicon Valley. We can build our own cooperative digital infrastructure.
Milk was just the beginning. The real revolution might be the app on your phone.
It just might be. We're watching it unfold in real time.
That is all for today's deep dive. A fascinating and I think a really hopeful look at what's happening in February 2026 and the potential future of the entire gig economy. It really makes you wonder. Let us know what you think. Would you switch to a cooperative app even if it was a little less slick than the big guys?
Or does convenience always win out in the end?
That's a great question. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you in the next deep dive.